No one is supposed to go blind when getting their eyeballs tattooed, but mistakes happen. And today we're talking about 3 women who have lost their vision after risking it all by putting their eyeballs under the needle.
It's very scary for me. Get a needle in your eyes.
You can see the needle when it's going into your eye. It's so weird.
If your eyeball procedure is done correctly, you're not supposed to go blind at all.
Well-known body modification artist Luna Cobra invented the practice of tattooing the whites of your eyeballs back in 2007 while experimenting on his 2 friends. And it's actually kind of cute. They called themselves the 3 blind mice, and they posted about their experimentation on a popular body modification blog called the Mod Blog. The first eyeball tattoo was attempted by Luna using the stick and poke method on Polly Unstoppable, who now goes by Farrah Flawless. And they couldn't get the ink to stay into the eye using the stick and poke method, so Luna decided to try again on his friend Shannon Larotte. And they ended up injecting a diluted ink into the eye using a needle, and this worked. These tattoos are known as scleral tattoos because the ink is meant to sit under the conjunctiva layer of your eye and on top of the sclera, which is the white of your eye. And these are incredibly thin and delicate layers of your eye. Luna Cobra is now incredibly well known all over the world for his eyeball tattoos. He did Grace Neutral's eyeballs, Quest's eyeballs, and Michaela Botton's eyeballs, among many, many others. And even though he's so well known and so well regarded for being an eyeball tattooer, Luna's incredibly cautious about the practice of tattooing eyeballs. In fact, his website is almost entirely dedicated to warning people against getting their eyeballs tattooed. And he's very clear about how dangerous this procedure can be, listing examples of people who have lost their vision while getting their eyeballs tattooed, as well as giving alternative options like wearing contacts. But if you are very serious about getting your eyeballs tattooed, Luna Cobra charges $5,000 per eye, and you have to endure 4 days of a very uncomfortable healing process. Someone who got this done said that it feels like there's thousands of eyelashes stuck in your eyeballs, and you just can't do anything about it for 4 days. And the procedure isn't supposed to be painful at all. It's just supposed to be uncomfortable when it's done correctly. But there's just so much that can go wrong with these eyeball tattoos. So we're gonna jump into talking about the 3 women who unfortunately experienced a botched eyeball tattoo. And we're talking about them in order of severity. So I'm gonna be starting with the least severe, and then we'll move on to the most severe case. So this is Australian model Amber Luke, and she spent over 200,000 euros on her body modifications, and she has over 98% of her body tattooed. And with all of those tattoos and all of those modifications, Amber said that the experience of getting her eyeballs tattooed was the most brutal experience she's ever had. In 2017, Amber was just 22 years old when she went to get her eyeballs tattooed. And she said that the torturous procedure had her enduring 4 syringe injections into each of her eyeballs.
Once the eyeball was penetrated with the ink, it felt like he grabbed 10 shards of glass and rubbed it in my eye. That happened 4 times per eye. That was pretty brutal.
So clearly something went very, very wrong right from when they started injecting Amber's eyeballs. Because like I said, this isn't supposed to be painful. And we can compare Amber's experience with another tattooed model named O'Reilly, who had this done by Luna Cobra correctly.
It hurt getting them tattooed? Simple answer, no. It was like a 2 out of 10 pain scale, and that's because there's no nerves inside of an eyeball, but most people wouldn't know that because they're not gonna get a needle inside of their eyeball.
I can imagine being in Amber's shoes getting this done and not knowing what to expect pain-wise from this procedure. And maybe she thought that this type of pain was normal, so that's why she ended up going through this 4 times. But this was definitely not a normal and not a correct experience, as the person who tattooed Amber's eyeballs went too deep. Amber ended up crying blue tears for 2 days straight after the procedure and was left temporarily blind in both of her eyes for 3 weeks. And she said at this time she was completely incapable of being independent in her life. I really can't imagine how scary of an experience that would be, especially for something that you elected to have done. after I'm assuming she knew the risks. But luckily, Amber did fully recover, and the blindness was only temporary. Amber said that she has no regrets that she got this done, but she just urges people to do their research when getting tattoos and body modifications so that they can do so safely.
I don't have any sort of regrets. I wanted everything at the time. All I say to you is just do your research.
But unfortunately, not everyone is as lucky as Amber to have regained their sight. The next person we're talking about is Anaya Peterson. And Anaya was actually inspired by Amber's blue eyeballs to go forward and get her own done. Anaya, who's now 33 years old, is from Northern Ireland, and she got her first tattoo when she was 22 years old, and she said that when she started, she couldn't stop. Anaya tattooed her right eye blue in July of 2020, and she had no serious complications, just some dryness and some headaches. So in December of that same year, she opted to tattoo her left eye purple. In an interview with Kennedy News, Anaya said, quote, "I was just going to get one eye tattoo at first, because I thought that if I go blind, at least I've got the other eye." And actually, Anaya's daughter, who was just 5 years old at the time, didn't want her mom to get eyeball tattoos at all, and said, quote, "Mommy, you will go blind." Unfortunately, Anaya didn't listen to her daughter, and in August of 2021, things took a turn for the worst. One morning, Anaya woke up with incredibly swollen eyelids, so she decided to check herself into the hospital. And there, the doctors diagnosed her with tattoo sarcoidosis, which is an autoimmune disease. And this condition can actually happen in any tattooed area. It's not exclusive to the eyeballs. And in Anaya's case, she actually was experiencing inflammation of parts of her body that were tattooed prior to getting her eyeballs done. So the thought is that once she got her eyeballs tattooed, her disease made it a lot worse and thus affected her vision. After a week in the hospital, Anaya was recovering, but she's been left with serious damage to her eyesight. Anaya said, quote, "I'm kind of recovered on the outside. It's recovered. It's just inside. I'm basically on the verge of going blind." Anaya now has to take steroid drops 2 to 3 times per day to fight inflammation. And she's also at risk of cataracts and glaucoma. And although she found the experience traumatizing at the time, she doesn't regret the experience in general. She just regrets not tattooing just one eye. Anaya says that if she could go back in time, she would just get this done with one eye and she would choose the color black instead of purple or blue. Anaya, unfortunately, is left with permanent vision issues. And she explains in this TikTok what she can and can't see.
But let me just show you what I see. Like, as you can see here, it's like a smudge in the vision. So this is what I see. I see like smudges everywhere. And I'm going to show you the next things that I see along with the smudge. So can you see the black spots? These are called eye floaters. So this is something that's also in my vision. But yeah, at the moment, it is having an impact on my daily life. Hence why I have a lot of professionals who support me. Yeah, whether or not this will go away entirely, we really don't know. But
and Anaya's also been really open on TikTok about how she experienced a lot of racism growing up. People telling her that her skin complexion was too dark and they called her ugly. And now in 2023, Anaya said that she's learning to love her skin complexion. I think Anaya is beautiful and she didn't deserve any of that growing up. And I really hope that her vision doesn't continue to worsen over time. And now we're moving on to our most severe case that we're talking about today of eyeball tattoos gone wrong. This is Aleksandra Sadowska, who is now in their late 20s and from Warsaw in Poland. When Aleksandra was 21 years old, they browsed local tattoo artists to find someone who would black out the whites of their eyes, similarly to this Polish rapper Popek. I hope I didn't butcher that pronunciation. So Aleksandra found a tattoo artist named Piotr A. And this man had absolutely no idea what he was doing when he tattooed Aleksandra's eyeballs. In a Daily Mail article, it says that Piotr did not know how to do eye tattoos and, quote, used a similar technique to tattooing skin. I can't imagine that Piotr used a tattoo machine to do these tattoos, because I just simply don't think that that would have worked. But what I think this article is referring to is that Piotr ended up using regular tattoo ink to tattoo Aleksandra's eyeballs. This is a huge oversight on Piotr's behalf. There's specific water-based pigments that are used for tattooing eyeballs. And if Piotr did any amount of research, he would have known that. It seemed that almost immediately Aleksandra was experiencing a lot of pain with these eyeball tattoos. They even told Piotr about this, and he said that this was normal and to just take painkillers. But this was absolutely not normal at all. And unfortunately, Piotr ended up seriously and permanently disabling Aleksandra. Soon after the procedure, Aleksandra's condition worsened significantly, and they completely lost sight in their right eye. Then, after 3 unsuccessful operations to repair Aleksandra's eyesight, the doctors said that the damage was irreversible and the left eye would soon lose sight as well. Aleksandra developed glaucoma and advanced cataracts and is left with extremely limited vision in their left eye and had to replace their right eye entirely with a prosthetic. 6 years after getting these eyeball tattoos done, Aleksandra began the legal process of suing this tattoo artist for permanently disabling them. During the investigation, it was found that Piotr made a series of serious mistakes. Most fundamentally was using the tattoo ink to tattoo Aleksandra's eyes. Aleksandra's lawyers told the local media that there is clear evidence that the tattoo artist did not know how to perform such a delicate procedure, and yet he decided to perform it, which led to this tragedy. Aleksandra shared their experience of going through all of this on Instagram and said, "Unfortunately for now, doctors do not give me much optimism for improvement. The damage is too deep and extensive. I'm afraid I will be completely blind." They went on to say, "I will not lock myself in the basement and get depressed. I have sadness behind me, but I live on." And Piotr pled not guilty to all of the charges that he was facing after permanently disabling Aleksandra. And he even continued to work at the tattoo studio that all of this happened at. Aleksandra initially demanded 300,000 euros in this court case, and after a long legal battle, Piotr was found guilty of incompetence and fined 30,000 euros. The news reports that I've found don't say anything about Piotr not being able to tattoo eyeballs anymore. I would hope that this is not the case. I don't think this man should be tattooing anyone ever again. And I'm assuming the court lowered that fine amount so significantly because there is an inherent risk to going to get your eyeballs tattooed, that you might lose your vision. And while definitely Piotr made huge mistakes in this case, Aleksandra, I'm sure, was aware that there was that risk from the beginning. And aside from Piotr's name, the only other things I could find about him was this photo that clearly has all of his identifying features blurred out. I don't know if this is something to do with Polish law that protects identity of people in circumstances like this, but since he was found guilty, I don't know why identifying information of him isn't readily accessible. Like, if I was living in Poland, I would absolutely want to know the identity of this person just to know who not to go to. And it's really unfortunate that Piotr just didn't take this procedure seriously at all and jumped into it when he was clearly incapable of tattooing someone's eyeballs. Unfortunately, Aleksandra is completely blind in both eyes and has to deal with that for the rest of their life. In a Q&A on Instagram, Aleksandra answered some questions about the eyeball tattoos. This first one is what prompted them to get their eyes tattooed. They said, "I just always have had a certain vision of myself in my head, and I want to fulfill it. Few will understand, but it doesn't necessitate understanding, and there's nothing bad in it." Another question is, how much has your life changed due to visual impairment? They said, "It has changed for sure. It is still changing. I still learn to function, new skills, and exercise abilities that help me in my daily life. I'm more clumsy, I'm slower in various activities. and often I am dependent on my husband. Despite just the absolute tragedy that Aleksandra has experienced, they overall have a really positive outlook. They take care of disabled animals and they try to find joy in the smaller parts of life. In a recent Instagram post, Aleksandra wrote, "We are not giving up, we are moving forward. There will be a lot of changes. They are necessary to move on and develop and enjoy life. But we will get through this. We've been preparing for a long time. We have a lot of support and we just want to be happy." Eyeball tattoos are just so extremely risky, and it's really disappointing to see artists jump into them when clearly they are not prepared or have any idea what they're doing. Some countries and regions have outright banned eyeball tattoos. Scleral tattooing is also banned in Oklahoma, Indiana, and Washington in the United States. And in Australia, eyeball tattooing is now prohibited by law unless performed by a medical practitioner. I think these regulations on eyeball tattooing are great, and I think there needs to be more regulations on who can tattoo people's eyeballs, because it is such a delicate procedure, and clearly, like we found out today, there's so much that can go wrong, and people can be harmed for the rest of their lives. I don't think there's anything wrong with people who want to get their eyeballs tattooed. It's clearly not a look for everyone, but I don't think they're like hideous or anything. I think some people look great with their eyeballs tattooed. Clearly there are people out there who are safely doing eyeball tattoos, but I think this procedure is just too risky to be widely available. But with that, I would love to know what you think about the 3 people we've talked about today and their experience getting botched eyeball tattoos. What do you think about eyeball tattoos in general? And what do you think about the regulations against eyeball tattooing? Let me know in the comments down below. But if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you have, leave me this emoji in the comments so I know that you are a real one. Bye everyone.